Hi guys, Olive here. Here today to show you my newest book acquisitions. I recently came into possession of 37 classics, and these aren't just any classics, but they are all in my all-time favorite edition, the Reader's Digest World's Best Reading Editions. Reader's Digest started publishing these sturdy hardcovers back in 1982, and from everything I can see, it looks like the last one they put out was released in 2013, and according to my research, it looks like there are 153 total books in the series. They originally released these as part of a mail order membership club, so I guess kind of like Book of the Month. When they first started out in the early 80s, they were only putting out one book per year, but then they slowly worked up to 2 books per year, and then at their height, they were releasing a new book every 6 weeks. Everything I've seen online seems to suggest that these books are still in print, but I found them rather hard to find, especially since a lot of the well-known ones were released quite a long time ago. I first discovered these editions when I was going to library book sales and used bookstores. Once I saw a few of them and started paging through them, I realized that they were part of a whole series, and after I did some internet research, I discovered what they were and really started keeping my eye out for them wherever I went. I slowly started to collect them, and at some point I decided that I'd like to own most of these, if not all of them. But like I said, they are a little bit harder to find since they are older books, so I started turning to the internet because I was tired of just waiting for them to show up when I was casually browsing at library book sales or used bookstores. I found that eBay was the best resource for finding these editions online, and one day, a couple weeks ago, I decided to finally take the plunge and order a lot of them, or a bulk number of them. I decided to just go ahead and spend the money on these books because I know I want to own the vast majority of these books. They are sturdy, they are absolutely gorgeous on the outside and on the inside, since most of them have specially commissioned illustrations inside. Also, since I started on BookTube, it's been kind of an unspoken goal of mine to read through a huge number of classics that I never got around to reading or never had the opportunity to read. So having these classics here in my bookish space is not only going to be something aesthetically pleasing, but also going to provide motivation for me to read some of these books, especially since a lot of these books are featured in the PBS Kids TV show Wishbone, and I run a whole series on that show here on my channel called What's the Story Wishbone. So that's enough introduction to these classics. Let's finally get a look at them. I am going to hold them up and show them to you one by one, but I want you to get an up-close view of every single one. They are that gorgeous, and I also want you to be able to get a sneak peek inside at some of those illustrations I was talking about. So let's get started. A Journey to the Center of the Earth by Jules Verne. A science fiction novel in which a German professor attempts to use volcanic tubes to get to the center of the Earth. Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne. An adventure novel of a man and his valet attempting to circumnavigate the world in 80 days, all based on a bet. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. An adventure novel of an expedition to find a mysterious sea monster. Moby Dick by Herman Melville. A sailor's narrative of the obsessive quest of his captain to seek revenge on the white sperm whale who bit off his lower leg. The Sea Wolf by Jack London. After a collision of seafaring vessels in San Francisco Bay, Captain Wolf Larson rescues a literary critic and forces him into being a cabin boy. Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. An adventure novel mixed with a coming-of-age story for the search for hidden treasure. This is the book that popularized some of the now very common notions about pirates. The Adventures of Robin Hood by Paul Creswick. A novelization of the ballads of Robin Hood, who, along with his followers, fights tyranny by stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow and Other Tales by Washington Irving. A collection of tales containing the ghost story of a town being haunted by a headless Hessian soldier. The Prince and the Pauper by Mark Twain. A poor boy and the Prince of Wales exchange identities and experience each other's lives. The Innocents Abroad by Mark Twain. A work of travel nonfiction in which Mark Twain charters a vessel through Europe and the Holy Land with a group of American travelers. Life on the Mississippi by Mark Twain. Twain's memoir of his days as a steamboat pilot on the Mississippi River before the American Civil War. The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. An exploration of one type of American boyhood told through the eyes of a precocious orphan growing up along the Mississippi River. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. The sequel to The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, in which Tom's friend Huck and a runaway slave named Jim take a voyage down the Mississippi towards slavery-free states. Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe. An anti-slavery novel depicting the severe conditions for enslaved African Americans in the American South. The Song of Hiawatha and Other Poems by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. A poetry collection containing the epic poem of a tragic Native American love story. Twice Told Tales by Nathaniel Hawthorne. A collection of short stories by the author of The Scarlet Letter, with a title based off a line from Shakespeare's play The Life and Death of King John. The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. A novel of the Great Depression. A group of helpless farmers trapped in the Dust Bowl set out to California seeking better prospects. The Virginian by Owen Wister. The story of a cowboy on a cattle ranch in Wyoming, this is considered by some to be the first true Western novel. Oh, Pioneers by Willa Cather. The first book in Cather's Great Plains trilogy, telling the story of a Swedish-American family living and farming in Nebraska. The House of Mirth by Edith Wharton, in which an impoverished socialite attempts to charm her way back up to the top of the social ladder, but has some major missteps along the way. A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. A coming-of-age tale of a young girl growing up very modestly in Williamsburg, Brooklyn in the early 20th century. Dr. Zhivago by Boris Pasternak. A fraught love story set in front of the changing face of Russia from the Revolution of 1905 through World War II. Ben-Hur by Lew Wallace. A revenge plot novel in which Jewish nobleman Judah Ben-Hur is falsely accused of attempted assassination and then enslaved by the Romans. Tales from the Arabian Nights. A collection of Middle Eastern folk tales compiled during the Islamic Golden Age. The Good Earth by Pearl S. Buck. A drama of family life in rural turn-of-the-century China. Lost Horizon by James Hilton. A veteran member of the British diplomatic service finds his center in the fictional utopian valley in Tibet called Shangri-La. Kim by Rudyard Kipling. The story of an orphaned vagabond unfolds against the backdrop of the Great Game, the political conflict between Russia and Britain in Central Asia. A Passage to India by E.M. Forster. A novel concerning the relations between the English and the native population of India during the colonial period. Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. A young boy who spends the first 9 years of his life in a poorly run orphanage turns to petty crime when he has few other options. The Old Curiosity Shop by Charles Dickens. The story of a young orphan girl named Nell who lives with her grandfather in a London antique shop. A Christmas Carol and Other Stories by Charles Dickens. A collection of stories from the Victorian novelist, including the classic Christmas novella of a serious grump rediscovering the meaning of the holiday. The Gift of the Magi and Other Stories by O. Henry. Another Christmas collection, the main story tells of a young husband and wife who, although very poor, find ways to buy small Christmas gifts for one another in secret. The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Other Stories by Robert Louis Stevenson. Another story collection, including the gothic novella of a man with very literal good and evil sides to his character. The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Stories originally published in magazines about a private detective with exceptional powers of observation called in to solve mysteries. The Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Further stories of the incredible Sherlock Holmes. A Study in Scarlet and The Hound of the Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. 2 novels of extended cases taken on by the famous detective. And finally, The Return of Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Even more stories of Holmes solving mysteries of all kinds. So those are all the Reader's Digest editions that I have picked up recently. I would love to hear from you. Do you like these editions? If so, which one was your favorite? And do you have any idea where I should start with any of these? I've only read a few and I'm really eager to read the rest, but I would love to know where you think I should start. You can put that or any other comments or questions you may have down in the comment section below, but you can also find me on a variety of different places on social media, and the links to all of my profiles are linked in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.